I feel really sorry for Liam, to be honest, because I think he's really proven himself to be ready. You know, what he's done in Super Formula this year, and, you know, I've been at most of the Super Formula races, so I've seen it firsthand, and having raced in Super Formula myself, knowing how hard that category is, he's done an incredible job.
Sometimes we see, I'm thinking of people like Stoffel Van Dorn and that, who do really well, maybe even win the championship in F2. Their build is the next big thing. But when they get to Formula 1, I know sometimes the team isn't performing or whatever, but generally sometimes when they get to Formula 1, it just kind of falls apart. Is it just that there's so much of a jump?
If you lock up and you go into somebody,
yeah,
then that's on you.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought, yeah.
I think it's as simple as that.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the On Track GP podcast. It's Coilin with you again here today, and I'm joined once again by Mr. Richard Bradley. How are you, Richard?
Not too bad, mate. How about yourself?
I've been better. Last 3 days have been just overnights for Japan.
Yeah, you kind of inadvertently jet lagged yourself by the looks of it.
Yeah, pretty much. I've never experienced jet lag before, but it certainly feels bad.
Yeah, I decided to watch the race replays rather than get up. It was my I think I've got one more weekend off for the rest of the year after this weekend, so I decided to enjoy it appropriately.
I'm gonna stop complaining about my weekends working then. So let's kick into it. So let's talk about, before we go to all the action in Japan. You were quite busy over the week, weren't you?
Yeah, I've been pretty busy myself. Last week ended up driving Nissan R90CK, which is it's from a category called Group C, which was the mainstay of Le Mans cars from the early 80s until the early 90s. And Group C was a completely bonkers idea, first of all. And like all great bonkers idea in motorsport, it unfortunately got killed off because it became too expensive. But effectively, you know, all these big manufacturers came in: Mercedes, Nissan, Mazda, Toyota, Porsche, many others, and they came up with these complete rocket ships, and the regulations were mainly controlled by fuel capacity, so you could do whatever you wanted as long as the fuel capacity was correct. I might be wrong there, but this is as far as I understand it. And the cars were putting out like over 1,000 horsepower in qualifying mode with these huge engines and huge turbos. So I was testing the R90. It qualified pole at Le Mans in 1990, but in Group C at that period, they had qualifying cars. So they had cars which were just designed for a one-lap special, engines turned up to the maximum, and then they just park that car, and then they just whack out another car for the race. Which is, now you understand why the category, it disappeared. But so the car I was driving was the car which started the race from pole position. It had a 3.5 litre V8 twin turbo, and we were just mapping the turbos and stuff like that. So we're still not on high boost, and we're getting circa 750, 800 horsepower out of it. But these guys were, you know, it still goes back to the F1 traits of the turbo era as well. They have no power steering, H-pattern gearboxes, no traction control, no ABS. And God, these things are completely wild. So no, I had a friend of mine's bought one, and I'm just doing the turbo mapping and some setup work for him. So I had a really cool time with that.
Yeah. And I was watching your onboards on social media. If you haven't seen them, check them out. They're something special. Yeah. They're really cool.
And you feel it as well. Like every time you put your right foot down, you can never get used to that much power. It's like if we went flat out in third gear, you'll get wheel spin, no problem. Well over 100 miles an hour. It's they were special cars. But yeah, like as I said, everything when it becomes that special in motorsport generally does die for being too expensive. And that's unfortunately what happened with Group C.
It was quite an era in sports car racing. When you said Group C, the first thing I thought was the Sauber C11 and the Mazda, the 797B.
787B, the with the rotary, the Wankel engine, which got banned for being, you know, it won Le Mans once and then they banned it. But you know, the cars, what was cool about them is I've driven the C11 as well, and you know, you've got the Nissan had a 3.5 litre twin turbo, and the turbos in the Nissan when they come in, it feels like it's like a whole body experience. You just feel like you're being thrown forward. But with the Merc, it's got a 5.5 litre V8 twin turbo, and the turbos in that come in a much more serene way, but it's actually got more overall power. And the way, well, I'd say more overall power, it has a slightly wider band with the power. The Nissans, when they went to full boost, were particularly quick in the straight. But either way, it's just a difference in how the car generates its lap time. Stuff like that is just fascinating.
Yeah, amazing. Well, let's move on to what happened over the weekend in Japan. Before we got on track, or before we got qualifying, should I say, there was the news that came out that AlphaTauri had signed Ricciardo and Tsunoda.
Yeah,
What's your thoughts on that, especially given how good Liam Lawson has been in recent races?
Yeah, I feel really sorry for Liam, to be honest, because I think he's really proven himself to be ready. You know, what he's done in Super Formula this year, and, you know, I've been at most of the Super Formula races, so I've seen it firsthand, and having raced in Super Formula myself, knowing how hard that category is, he's done an incredible job. And, you know, well, obviously coming into Formula One with nowhere near as much prep as he would like because of Ricciardo's incident in Zandvoort. I think he's done an incredible job. As I said before in one of the previous episodes, I had doubts about him for Singapore just from the physical side, and he absolutely excelled there. And he showed, you know, he's starting to show that he's a completely ready Formula One driver. So I would feel very hard done by, to be honest, if I was him. And I think he's been quite controlled in some of the stuff he said in the press. I mean, he's come out and he said that he's obviously not delighted about it, but he's kind of held back there. And a bit of a statement at the weekend. He beat Tsunoda well. Again. And yeah, I feel a bit hard done by for him. But I have a feeling, and it wouldn't surprise me, that because he has done so well, there could be other opportunities opening up. I mean, again, Logan Sargeant didn't have a good weekend. That seat is coming under question marks, as we know. And so maybe Red Bull will be like, okay, we'll find a way to stick Lawson there. Or Williams might just go, look, we have a proven entity in Liam Lawson now. Can we find a way to put him in our car?
Yeah, and that brings us on nicely to Logan Sargeant once again. Quite a hefty impact in qualifying for him. Not a good weekend for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, he just looks completely void of all confidence now. You know, when a driver gets into that downward spiral, it's like when you have a goalkeeper who keeps conceding silly goals, or a striker who's in a big goal drought. You find it really hard to see a way out for him now, and the crashes just keep on coming. And as a driver, to get yourself out of that mode or that spiral is really tricky. I feel, you know, and Logan is a good driver. He proved that in Formula 2. Don't forget, Liam Lawson and Logan Sargeant were teammates in Formula 2 last year, and you know, were very, very evenly matched. And so it's just a confidence thing, and whatever's happening in that environment is just not suiting him at the minute. But, you know, he's running out of time to fix it. And obviously we've seen that Dragovic is in discussions with Williams as well. And Dragovic comes with some pretty hefty backing. Obviously, Liam Lawson is now on the market, as people know, and is a proven quantity. And I'm sure Red Bull will be very interested to put him in a car. So I think the right, you know, unless something miraculous happens, the writing's almost on the wall for Logan.
Well, why is it for these drivers? You know, we see them, like you said, Sargeant was quite good in F2 last year. Sometimes we see, I'm thinking of people like Stoffel Van Dorn and that, who do really well, maybe even win the championship in F2. Their build is the next big thing. But when they get to Formula 1, I know sometimes the team isn't performing or whatever, but generally sometimes when they get to Formula 1, it just kind of falls apart. Is it just that there's so much of a jump?
It is a big jump, and Formula 2, you know, again, having worked in that category in Formula 3, they're very, very particular cars, and it's a particular style, and it's a very, very unique style, and it's not that relatable to Formula 1. I mean, I've spoken to Liam about this, and he said that the Super Formula car is much better for getting prepared for Formula 1 than a Formula 2 car is, because of the tyre situation in Formula 2. And it's a very particular style, and that's why quite often in Formula 2 it's very rare to see a rookie winning his first year, because they have to adapt to the complexities of that particular championship, with the extreme degradation that the tyre has. You know, the engines are quite a tricky engine to drive as well, with massive power. So it's a very, very different animal to being in a Formula 1 car, and the level also is incredibly high. Everybody in Formula 1 is a winner. I mean, we make jokes about pay drivers, but everyone on that grid is a good driver. And Logan Sargeant, not only did he prove it in F2, but he proved it in Formula 3 as well, with what he did with a team which was, you know, never winning anything. He won races with that car. Yeah. And I think it's a big jump, and I think people are underestimating also just how good Alex Albon is.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think that it's all about getting your confidence back. We saw that with Albon at the Red Bull. He looked completely devoid of confidence, but now you look at him in a Williams, and we're all saying, right, he's next in line for one of the big seats when they come up.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Just before we move away from Logan Sargeant, one of the things that I read last night after the race I found very interesting, and I wanted to ask your opinion on it, was do you remember near enough to start the race he had the collision with Bottas because he locked up into the hairpin? He said that Bottas should have known to avoid me locking up or to avoid my mistake. Like as a racing driver yourself, if you were in that position, would you try and make advantage of somebody's mistake like that, or would you hold back? What way would you think?
No, I think that if you lock up and you go into somebody, then that's on you.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought. Yeah,
I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
You never go into a corner. And having raced at Suzuka many times, I've had battles into that corner and everything from Formula 3 cars to GT cars and Super Formula itself. You never go into a corner once you're committed in the braking zone thinking, okay, I need to be ready in case this guy locks up behind me. So I think that is really trying to clutch at straws, and that is the sort of sign from a man who is under quite a lot of pressure.
Yeah, for sure. If I could ask you before we move on, if you had one driver to put in that seat, or if you could make a prediction, who's it going to be?
Liam Lawson, no question. Well, in terms of one driver I could put in, I'd put in Liam Lawson, no question about it. You know, he's 100% proven he could do the job. Now, will he get the seat? That's a very different story, and I think Felipe Drugovich is in a very, very good position for that. And there's already come out this weekend that he's been having negotiations with them for quite some time, and I know he was in quite strong negotiations with some other teams this year as well before other circumstances happened. So he's ready to go, and I think that's the most likely thing. But I personally would like to see Liam Lawson get the chance.
Yeah.
But saying that, bear in mind, Felipe Drugovich and Liam Lawson were both in Formula 2 last year, and Drugovich absolutely dominated that championship. He won the championship before the last round. So, you know, there's I don't think it would be bad if Lawson didn't find a seat, because he's clearly proven that he deserves it. But Drugovich is definitely not a mug. You know, he's proven himself to be very good.
No, you just said that. I remember Drugovich last year winning. I think it was Spain. He won the feature race and the sprint race.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
yes,
epic.
I mean, you know, as I said, I was in Formula 2 most of last year, and he was standout. He was absolutely standout compared to everybody. And he made the thing that was really classy about it was that he made it look easy at times. You know, he won when he needed to win, and he just chilled out when he needed to chill out, and then sometimes he just drove off into the distance. He was supremely good last year. And then when he was with teammates with Zhou at Virtuosi, he gave Zhou a very serious run for his money. I think Drugovich is an exciting prospect as well.
Cool. Well, when we're speaking about champions, can't not mention Red Bull, of course, 6th Constructors' Championship, and after the worries of Singapore, they're well and truly back with their domination on Max Verstappen.
Well, yeah, Max Verstappen's back with his domination.
Yeah.
let's get that
Max
clear.
in the Red Bull.
Yeah, I mean, Perez is looks like he's entering that downward spiral that he was in earlier in the season, except now it's coming in forms of collisions. And, you know, there was the Christian Horner interview. I didn't actually see this, but I got told about it on TV, and he was very, very brutal about how Perez's weekend was, and justifiably so.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at what Max was able to do, it looks like he's just become completely devoid of confidence again. And okay, the question goes, if Perez finishes second in the Drivers' Championship, that's exactly what you want your two drivers to do. But how long can he stay there when he's clearly underperforming in such a way?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, we all understand that Max is generational. There's no question about that. But it's too far behind now. You know, as I said, whenever you have these world-class drivers in the absolute form, you need a solid rear gunner who can take over when you need it. You know, with Schumacher, you had Eddie Irvine. When Schumacher broke his leg, Eddie Irvine was able to take Hakkinen to the last round. With Hakkinen, you always had Coulthard. With Hamilton, you always had Bottas. Don't forget that 100% Q3 record he had with Mercedes. Yeah. You always need a rear gunner just in case something happens. And let's pretend that Red Bull or Honda have technical woes and they retire a lot of times with Max's car or whatever happens. Perez is not going to consistently be that guy who can rack up those points.
Yeah.
And you have to start asking questions when Max is so far ahead. You need a solid rear gunner who's, you know, those drivers who I just mentioned would always be in the top four every single time, pretty much. You know, okay, there'd be a bad day, but invariably they'd always be there. At the minute, you know, Perez has every man and his dog wants that seat in any category in motorsport. I could tell you all the sports car drivers want it, all the IndyCar drivers want it, and he's just not doing it at the minute. And you know, this is a second big spiral that he's had this year. So again, hopefully he'll improve by the end of the season. But with Ricciardo now being confirmed at AlphaTauri, it pretty much means that Perez will be at Red Bull next year, or on the face of it. Who knows in Formula One? But no, it's not good enough.
Yeah. What did you make of his collision with Kevin Magnussen? It was, I thought initially, when we watched it here yesterday in the watch along, I thought, he was always going to go for Magnussen to shut the door. But the more I watched it over yesterday, I kind of thought that was a bit of a
desperation.
Yeah,
desperation.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that was it. I think that frustration came in. I think that Carlos Sainz, if you read his interview after the race, he said that it was very difficult to overtake. And also, for whatever reason, Suzuka is normally incredibly high grip. For whatever reason, this year it wasn't. Sainz said that because of that, you had to be half a second plus quicker than the car in front, or up to a second quicker than the car in front, to be able to easily overtake. So I detect a little bit of frustration coming in for Perez, especially we know the Haas is not the best on degradation. Yeah. And he probably thought he wanted to get by that car sooner rather than later. And it was always weird because with that hairpin, I mean, Suzuka it's TV doesn't do it justice. That place is so narrow. I remember when I had my first go at Suzuka, it was wet in Formula 3, and I came out the second corner and I looked at the S's and I said in my helmet, oh my Lord, like this is very, very intimidating, and it's extremely narrow. And that hairpin wasn't somewhere where you would ordinarily overtake or even think about overtaking in the past. And ever since Kobayashi did his race there in the Toyota, I think it was first one, and started overtaking people there, it's become fashionable now to pass people into the hairpin.
Yeah.
And to have a proper run into that hairpin is a very low grip braking zone. It's very, very easy to lock up. I always change the brake bias when I go into there to stop locking up. And I think that it does suck you in. It does make you want to go for that move. But yeah, he didn't need to. No. A bit of desperation.
Yeah, he would have plenty of time to get by.
Exactly.
If he just waited, yeah. But we'll talk about Perez. He's always behind and not up there with Max. But is that going to become a particular problem now when we see McLaren? Obviously, McLaren is great form in the last.
Yeah, well, this is what they have to worry about. At the minute, it's all good. They won the Constructors' Championship, and if Sergio finishes second in the Drivers' Championship, what more can you want for your number 2 driver, right? But there has to be some doubts coming into their head, because there will be a time when Red Bull don't have a car quite as dominant as there is now. It's Formula One. You look at the rate of progression that McLaren have made from Bahrain to this year.
Yeah.
That it will change, and it will ebb and flow at some point within the next 12 months. And you need to have your rear gunner there, because Max will have a bad day at some point, or the car will have a bad day. Something will happen, and you'll need someone there.
Just like what we saw in Singapore.
Exactly.
It could happen, But yeah, I mean, McLaren, I was actually talking with Matisse yesterday before we went live, and we were kind of trying to decide between the two of us, where they were in Bahrain and where they are now. In terms of that level of progression within the team and the car, I can't actually remember a previous season where I've seen a team do this jump in performance. It's quite incredible from them.
It's remarkable. It's actually incredible. And there's not really much of an explanation for it.
No.
It's a very, very big jump. Obviously, there'll be explanations in the design rooms, and they will have found something out. But it gives you a lot of confidence. I mean, at the start of the year, everyone was saying, "Oh, Lando's got to start thinking about other options because McLaren is so bad." Well, you have to say, since really Silverstone onwards, McLaren's kind of been in that gaggle, probably second, third or fourth best car, with Mercedes and Ferrari all at different times. Mercedes probably a bit further back. But now there's a good reason to stay there. And if they can keep working on that philosophy and exploit a bit more for it, then it could be interesting going into next year.
Yeah, for sure. It could be one of the competitors to Red Bull next year, even with the way things are going. And then, of course, I think from next year on, they'll have their new wind tunnel at Woking, and it's all looking very good for them. It's
looking very positive. And also, Lando Norris ended up with the unenviable stat of the driver with the most points to never won a Grand Prix. Now, you have to always be careful with stats like this, because the point model changes very quickly. So, for example, in the 80s, it was 9 points for a win. And, then historically, up until recently, it was only 10 points for a win. So drivers had a lot less points back then than they do now, but it still doesn't really change the facts.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. I was astonished when I read it, because I didn't realise he'd done so many races to begin with. But
yeah, and if it wasn't for Max Verstappen, he probably would have had a few wins this year.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, we'll talk about his teammate Oscar Piastri. What do you think of his performance at the weekend? I thought it was, for a circuit he's never driven on, it was a...
I had a phone call with a friend
moment.
this morning when I was on the way to the station, and we were talking about that. And Piastri didn't finish that close to Norris, but I said to my friend that, look, Suzuka is, having driven there many, many, many times in all sorts of cars, that is for me one of the hardest tracks that you'll ever learn, because it's so narrow and it's so unforgiving. If you make one mistake there, you're in the fence. And you can do as much simulator and stuff as you like, because the difference is in the simulator, if you screw up, it doesn't hurt. If you screw up in real life at Suzuka, it can go very, very wrong.
No.
And it feels small, it feels narrow, it feels like a tunnel vision effect, and it's very, very blind as well. The elevation on TV does it absolutely no justice. When you come through the S's, you are, because of the way the walls are, firstly, you're blind on the exit of the next S's, but then at the end of the S's with Dunlop, you literally can't see the exit. So you're having to pinpoint and predict and hope that the track's still there. And it's quite difficult, because where the short circuit cuts, the curb disappears, and then there's just tarmac, then the curb comes back. It's very, very tricky for rookies. And I would say Suzuka probably takes 4 or 5 times of going round it to actually be 100% comfortable with the circuit. And that's why the drivers love it, because it is such a challenge. And it's my favourite circuit in the world. I love it. So to have not been there and to be relatively competitive to Lando, obviously not perfect in the race, but through the weekend to be that close to him, I think that Oscar had a very, very good weekend, and I think he is going to be he's going to be a future winner. There's no question about it, and he's doing himself a lot of favors at the minute.
Yeah, 100%.
And you see also the other big thing is the delta between him and Lando at the beginning of the season to now. He's another driver. He's made as much progress as the car's made. He's closed the gap substantially to Lando. Yeah. And I think the way he's gone about it this year has been really, really impressive. But we anyone in the industry knew he was a bit good. We all knew he was a bit special. So it's really not that surprising to me.
Yeah. Well, let's move down a little bit further down the grid. Mercedes, what do you think of Mercedes this weekend? Not particularly.
Yeah,
just hit and miss again with them, isn't it?
It's hit and miss, and then obviously there was the team order scenario with trying to use Sainz's DRS trick. But in the end, it didn't. Lewis wasn't delighted about it, but most drivers will never be delighted about anything that goes against them. It's just kind of the way we're wired. I think that they were just a bit flat. They just didn't have the speed there, and Lewis said that pretty much from practice one. If you actually look where Lewis went from FP1 to the race, he actually made some good progress.
Yeah. Do you think it was a bit of a waste having them race each other on those early laps, or
it's
been done differently?
I mean, it's very, very tricky, because you have to remember you're dealing with. When you're dealing with racing drivers, we all have, when we're actually in the car, we all have egos the size of Jupiter, and it's very, very difficult. And also, thinking in the back of your head what the teams think if they try and do this, it's very, very difficult thing, because you're never, as a team with team orders, you're always going to have one very, very angry person on the other side of it. I mean, looking at what happened with Alpine and their team orders, I don't know if you saw the onboard of Gasly at the end of the race, but he was clearly exceptionally unhappy with their team orders.
I didn't see it, but I heard that he was. He was very frustrated.
Yeah. For like the 3 corners after the flag, there was a lot of arm waving, and he definitely was very, very angry about it.
Oh wow.
So you have to play a fine balance. So to be honest, and also as a racer, probably the commercial people in the marketing department and the finance department would say, nope, team orders, that's it, whole formation. But me being a racer, I would go, let them race.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think about Ferrari? A little bit below par considering what they're like in Singapore, but probably expected.
Yeah, probably expected. Such a different circuit, right? It's just it's clear, they kind of knew that they weren't going to be as strong there as they were at Singapore, and that was it, basically. That was what they had, and that was the Ferrari that we saw in Silverstone. That was the Ferrari we've seen on all these other high-speed circuits. Their car's just not very good at that, and it's very good on street circuits. It's just the way it is for them right now.
I know it was throughout the race yesterday. It seemed like they were doing our usual trend of this year, where they'd start high-ish and just go backwards.
Yeah,
there is kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think for the rest of the season, I mean, the circuits, they're probably They've probably only got one more circuit where you could actually, thinking off the top of my head, you could actually think, or possibly two, with Mexico, where they're going to be very good with 90-degree corners and stuff, is Abu Dhabi and Mexico. But Mexico's a very different one because of the altitude, and it's such low grip there. That's I did the World Endurance Championship there in 2016. That place is the lowest grip circuit I've ever driven by a long way.
Really?
It's very, very strange. But the rest of the circuits coming up, Qatar, Austin, Brazil's always a complete lottery in terms of a race. Every race there in every category is awesome. So God knows what will happen there. But I can't, I think they're just going to be where they are unless we get, those quick radius 90-degree corners like we have on the street circuits.
Yeah. Maybe Las Vegas will be one to watch out for them there.
Yeah, I mean, Vegas, to be honest, I haven't actually looked that much at that layout. But, Vegas, they could be strong because of the... obviously the one thing we're all talking about Vegas is they've tried to make it as much as Baku as they can, and Ferrari were very strong in Baku, so maybe it will help them. The other thing with Vegas at that time of year, it can be quite warm, so they have proven to be good in warm races. Obviously in Singapore, which is it's always absolutely roasting there. So yeah, Vegas, they might have a shot at it, but I think we'll have to see till we get there because that's a bit of an unknown for us.
I've driven the layout on the PlayStation game of Vegas, and it's just a straight down the strip. It's the longest straight you could ever have. So there's going to be, like, I can imagine 3 cars wide into the corner with the way they're going to be.
Yeah.
Going to be slipstreaming each other down there.
Yeah, it's kind of become the new model with these circuits since Baku. Basically, once Baku came along, everybody went, oh, okay. Like, I remember when I first saw the onboard of Baku, I was like, oh my word, this is completely insane. But now the trend for tracks like that is to go that way. Jeddah obviously is another ballpark completely, and then long straight of Vegas and everything. But yeah, I think Vegas, maybe they'll have a chance. As I said, Abu Dhabi possibly, and Mexico possibly.
We named a good few races there. The last few races we have of this year. If I was to ask you your predictions for those particular races, what do you think? Do you think something could happen somewhere? Or
well, it's obvious.
Apart from the obvious.
Yeah, the obvious will be Max driving off into the distance. I think the Vegas, as I said, is an unknown, so that's always an interesting one. So we'll see what happens there. But the other race, which it's always puts up excitement, and there's a couple of tracks just have these layouts and characteristics which just always work in everything. It's Brazil, and I love that place. I mean, I did the World Endurance Championship race there in 2014, and we won it, and it was the most bonkers race ever. Everybody crashed. I mean, it was just one of those races where including us. My team.
2014 was it?
2014.
That was when Webber had the big.
That
crash,
was when Webber had the big crash. Yeah, and we ended up winning it, but my teammate crashed as well before I got into the car. So it was a completely wild race. And I also got side podded by Emerson Fittipaldi, which I didn't know whether to be annoyed at or quite proud of. He's a bit of a Brazilian legend. Thankfully, sports cars are quite tough, so it didn't do any damage. But it's just, and also the weather's very unpredictable there, and it's just a layout which generates good racing. It's always been one of my favourite races, Brazil.
Yeah, I used to love it when they had Brazil as the season finale. And I think of 20.
Well, that was when 2007 was that was when Lewis won the 2007 it was the finale. Raikkonen won. 2008 obviously Lewis won when Massa crossed the line corner, first. Yeah. And that's the thing, on last corner overtake, right, for the World Championship. That just shows you how good Brazil is. And Brazil's been everywhere in the calendar. It used to be second in the calendar after Australia. Yeah. So yeah, it's it's one of my favourite tracks in the world.
Yeah. It's funny, you said Brazil being second in the calendar. They're going to have Japan, they were saying yesterday, which I forgot because when I looked at the calendar, I noticed it, but I forgot that they're going to have Japan as the 4th race of the season next year. That's going to feel strange. Yeah, that's going to feel strange, but it's also a very smart decision because having spent a lot of time in Japan and had many races cancelled because of various typhoons and storms and clouds and everything, they do always put Suzuka in typhoon season, and I've had races at Suzuka cancelled at that time of year because of typhoons. So the weather still can be very dodgy when they're having it, but the chance of a typhoon is much less, and we can deal with rain, but typhoons are pretty spectacular. Yeah. Now, what do you think about then in the other side of the calendar having Baku in September? Do you think would that throw in cause any weather or? Well, I've never actually been to Baku, so I can't really comment on that. But I think it could be an interesting one. The other thing, that part of the world at that time of the year is hot, so it could be a properly hot race.
But yeah, I think that having Japan in April is just kind of a logical decision. I think was actually driven more by the fact of how many typhoons and rain issues we've had there over the years.
Well, I was just talking about 2024. What I noticed actually over the weekend was with the driver movements within Formula One. The minute, let's forget about Sargeant's seat, or let's imagine that he holds on to it for whatever reason. But there's only been one change from last year in terms of driver signings in Formula One, and that being Daniel Ricciardo being back, which I find really odd. I can't remember a season where there's...
Especially with silly season this year was looking like it was going to be completely wild at one stage.
Yeah.
Obviously, Zhou's confirmed at Alfa Romeo, going back to the 2024 thing, Chinese Grand Prix coming back next year, which I'm sure probably had a big reason to do with that. But as I said, I think Zhou deserves it. I think he's been okay. But yeah, it's very strange. But you know, Formula One, things can always change, and it's like football. If people want to find a way to make changes, they always find a way to make changes. Like whenever you see a player sign an 8-year contract or a driver sign an 8-year contract, you're like, yeah, okay. Until someone decides that they want that driver or player and they want to leave. Understood.
Prime example being Piastri's 2026 contract.
Yeah, exactly. We got Piastri's contract, and then Ricciardo got out of his, and you know he's I don't know whether they paid him off or whether he's still being paid by McLaren.
He's been paid by McLaren and driving somebody else's car.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
the way the world works, right?
Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. So thank you very much for joining us once again, Richard.
Pleasure.
And yeah, guys, thank you very much for watching and listening wherever you are. And make sure you like, comment, subscribe, do all that nice stuff for us. And we'll see you again in the next one. See you there, guys. Thank you.